Hi there, welcome along to Headline Makers. Manchester City were involved in an Etihad epic against Real Madrid on Tuesday, but what can Liverpool deliver tonight? Jurgen Klopp says it's special to be playing a Champions League semi-final first leg against Villarreal, and there's a familiar face in the opposition dugout. Ralf Rangnick admits a top four finish is now an unrealistic target for Manchester United as they prepare to face Chelsea on Thursday. Or Thomas Tuchel insists no one at the club is happy that Antonio Rudiger is set to leave in the summer. But it's all eyes on Anfield later as Liverpool continue their chase for the quadruple.
Salah on his left foot, and it's 3-0. Keita, what a goal! Jota keeping his feet, tapping it in, 2-0 to Liverpool.
Alexander-Arnold, that is a diamond of a goal. Firmino with finesse! Luis Diaz picked out brilliantly! Salah, he's rolled it into the path of Sadio Mane! Alexander-Arnold, it's in! Robertson!
It's Van Dijk, no problem at all.
Here's Robertson, and here's John Henderson. That is a beautiful finish.
So, as we said, we've already had one Champions League semi-final first leg this week as Manchester City beat Real Madrid 4-3 in an incredible match at the Etihad. Liverpool face Villarreal in their first leg tonight. On Thursday, Manchester United host Chelsea in the Premier League, while West Ham and Leicester play in their respective European semi-finals. And I'm delighted to say Sam Wallace is with me here in the studio. Welcome along, Sam. You were at the Etihad last night, one of the lucky few to be there watching. Was it one of the best games you've ever covered as a journalist?
It was certainly up there. It felt like sort of a dozen great Champions League semi-finals in one evening. I think when we get to this stage of the competition, you really feel the quality of the elite. And also what's interesting in those situations is because teams are at the end of a difficult season, they have developed weaknesses, and that was what made last night intriguing. Obviously, City didn't have the right back they wanted, and then they had an injury in that position, and Real Madrid targeted that. And certainly, David Alaba was injured, came on for half time, but not before Gabriel Jesus had turned him inside out. So it was a wonderful night, and I have to say, it's great to see top players like De Bruyne performing, but it's also great to see, or intriguing to see, the top players struggling at times against each other, and that's what makes this part of the competition so interesting.
Talking of top players who very much performed, Karim Benzema, he went for the Panenka. Could you believe it when he did it?
I think those guys just operate on a different level, and obviously they've got such confidence in their ability. The interesting thing about that penalty, I really felt in the moment, it's easy to say with the benefit of hindsight, but there was a great energy in the stadium, and you could see that was in Ederson, and maybe Benzema sensed that as the great goal scorer and knew that the goalkeeper was going to fling himself one way or the other, and he just slowed it down, and in that moment it worked perfectly. We'll focus on that game a little bit later, but Liv's here at the touchscreen on the big Premier League game this week. It's Manchester United against Chelsea.
Yeah, absolutely, Adam. Chelsea looking to cement third place in the Premier League table. We are going to be hearing from Chelsea's main man, Kai Havertz, but it didn't always start out like that for him. We're going to be hearing from him about the struggles he faced at the start of his Chelsea career, and we're also going to be hearing from the Chelsea manager, Thomas Tuchel, after the news broke that Antonio Rudiger will be leaving the club, and just what sort of player Chelsea will, unfortunately, Adam, be losing.
Thanks, Liv. Looking forward to that. We'll speak to you a bit later. Let's start then with Liverpool's Champions League semi-final first leg against Villarreal, who are managed by the former Arsenal boss Unai Emery. It's the third time in 5 seasons that Jurgen Klopp has led Liverpool to the last 4 of this competition, and it's another crucial game in their quest for the quadruple.
So it was obvious. I think we were 14 points behind, and then in that moment, 2 games in hand, blah blah blah. And that's where we just decided, let's give it a try. Because it's easy in these moments. We have big expectations before a season, big ambitions, and then during the season it's okay. We played okay season until then, but obviously not an outstanding season. And that's what there was still something to go for, and it's in our situation always the same. The main thing we have to do first of all is qualify for the Champions League the next year. Since then it is each game a final. Actually, each football game should be like a final, but it's if you have to make it up too much, then it's maybe not that clear, and you cannot really behave like that. But since then we behave like that. That's the truth, and so it will not change until somebody tells us it's not worth fighting anymore, and we try.
Y jugamos contra un equipo que es favorito, un equipo que en condiciones normales pues puede ser superior a nosotros, pero nosotros tenemos también nuestros mecanismos individuales y colectivos para poder competir, y compitiendo y encontrando también nuestra capacidad de respuesta a nuestro juego, y esa adaptación a que todo lo que nos exijan ellos pues es lo que hará que encontremos vías para poder ganarlo, y sobre todo lo vamos a vivir.
Wow. Impressive. Unai is obviously a detail-obsessed manager who prepares for all different situations in a game, different ways to build up, different ways to press, different ways to react on different results. Really, really impressive, and obviously Unai is a world-class coach and is doing an incredible job there.
Well, let's get some more insight on this big game then. Harriet Pryor from the Anfield Wrap joins us now, as well as Alvaro Romeo, who's a Spanish football journalist. Welcome along to both of you. Harriet, I'll come to you first. Obviously, Liverpool are the huge favourites going into this one against Villarreal, who have been the giant killers really so far in the Champions League this season. There's always one team, isn't there, that does that. Is there any danger of complacency for Liverpool?
Of course, there's always a danger, and like you said, Liverpool have been talked up as the favourites throughout the whole time. People are saying Liverpool have got a really easy route to the final. I think as fans, and I don't think I'm stand alone in this, we see it very differently, because we know the quality that they have, and we know that they've not had an easy run by any means to get here. They've beaten Juventus, they've beaten Bayern Munich, they've got a lot of quality. They're a well-drilled and organised side, and they've got pose a lot of threats. So I think there is a danger that we can see it as a maybe easy game when that's not the case at all. But I think Klopp was speaking in his press conference and said, look, maybe in the previous fixtures they've played, the opposition hasn't taken them as seriously as they should, and Liverpool and the players and the mentality that they have, there's no danger of that for me. I think they'll take it really seriously, and us as fans, we need to remember that we're playing in the Champions League semi-final tonight and treat it accordingly, because there's no easy games at this stage of the competition.
Alvaro, despite Liverpool's obvious talents on the pitch, do you think Villarreal will go into this game, because of the upsets that they've perhaps caused so far in the competition, beating Juventus, knocking out Bayern Munich as well, that they can go toe-to-toe with another side like Liverpool?
I think that there is an understanding in Villarreal that Liverpool is a better side than them, but of course Unai Emery said that they've got the weapons to play against them, and I think that Unai Emery has a plan as well. If he has proven anything against Bayern and against Juve, is that he knew how to play against them. So I think that his plan against Liverpool is going to be probably right as well. The thing is that Liverpool is presenting something else, another type of challenge for Villarreal. Bayern was a lesser Bayern against Villarreal, and I give full merit to Villarreal for that. Juventus was a little bit watered down as well, but I think this Liverpool at the minute is a great machine, and they've got a big engine as well, and some players that will be crossing the ball into the box all the time. They will probably attack much more than Bayern and Juventus did. So I believe that this is the ultimate challenge for Villarreal, but let's not forget that Villarreal conceded only 2 goals in 4 games against Juventus and Bayern. That is quite something.
Alvaro, let's look specifically at some of those players, because there's quite a few familiar faces, familiar names for fans of the Premier League, players who played for Spurs and Arsenal. Francis Coquelin in there as well, 105 Premier League appearances. So a lot of former Premier League players, but no one really in there that lit up the Premier League. But when they've been playing for Villarreal, they seem to have brought their best football, haven't they?
Yes, I think that Unai Emery got the best of them. I will say that if you see many of those players, those are players that we knew that they had the potential to be good players, but they found the perfect landscape, the perfect scenario to shine at Villarreal. And especially I would like to single out from all of those Danjuma Groeneveld. Last season he was at Bournemouth. We knew about his quality, but he has been probably the best signing of Spanish football this year. He's fantastic in the counter-attack. He's scoring many goals for Villarreal Villarreal. He scored 2 goals for Villarreal last week against Valencia, and I think that he is the biggest threat of the team, considering that Gerard Moreno is going to be out. Gerard Moreno is the best player they've got, so now all the scoring responsibility is over Danjuma. A year ago he was playing in the Championship, and now he is in the Champions League semi-final. So I think that they should be taking this as a massive challenge and as an opportunity as well to vindicate themselves in the biggest European stage after maybe not having all of them the perfect time in the Premier League.
Harriet, how important do you think you, the fans, and the atmosphere there at Anfield will be in this game just to quieten down Villarreal's hopes of an upset?
Incredibly important. I think some of the Villarreal players have come out and said that it's not a nice place to come and play football, and that's exactly what the kind of atmosphere we want to create for the opposition when they come to Anfield. We want them to feel like they're on edge and they're scared of the atmosphere that the fans will create, because I know it's a bit of a cliche, but there really is nothing like a European night under the lights at Anfield, that when all the fans come together, we know that something special is happening. We know at this stage of the season how much it means to every single person in that stadium, and the collective energy that everyone brings is really something quite special. So I think if we're all on the top of our game as well, and Klopp often references that we all need to be involved as much as we can, then we'll play a huge part and we'll be needed to spur the players on, and especially against a well-drilled and organised side that might come and try to sit back a little bit, try to play a bit of a low block, and we've seen lots of teams come to Anfield and try and do that this season. Will be needed to give them a bit of momentum and push them on.
Sam, Liverpool have set such a high bar in terms of performances over the last few seasons. They played brilliantly, didn't they, the weekend in the Merseyside derby. Where are they at, do you think, in terms of the level compared to what we've seen over the last couple of seasons?
Oh, I mean, they're in the peak years now. This is where they've accumulated experience, they've accumulated trophies. I mean, they've won the big ones. And this is where the kind of legacy is built. This is the sweet spot. You know, there will come a time in the next few years. We already know that a couple of big players like Salah are approaching the end of contracts. But this is the point that every big club would like to reach, where you've got a manager who's won before, you've got a really experienced squad. And I mean, I've got full respect for what Villarreal have achieved, but this is a dream semi-final. I mean, compared to what they could be facing, that doesn't mean they're going to win it. There could still be an upset, but in terms of the relative wage budgets of both teams, Liverpool are heavy favourites here, and to lose this one would be one of the great sort of the great upsets really of the Champions League. So they've won this trophy before, and this is at the point where we've seen it with Ferguson's teams as well, with United when they were at their strongest. Can you go and add that next Champions League? It's a massive opportunity.
Let's hear from Jordan Henderson, one of the Liverpool players, because back in 2016 Liverpool lost to Unai Emery's Sevilla in the final of the Europa League. Here's Henderson speaking about what that game did to him that day.
That night always sticks out to us, and I always remember it, just because I can remember after the game going back to the hotel. Obviously all the lads are disappointed, and you know, you just want to sort of go back to your room, not see anybody, just get your head down. But the gaffer was a bit different to what you would expect. You know, you had everybody downstairs together in the bar area, and just sort of had spent the night together, because I felt as though he knew that this was the beginning and the start of something special to come. You know, as a player, it's very difficult to think that then when you've just lost the final. But I always felt he was very different to what I've ever seen before, and that night always sticks out in my mind. He sort of knew what was coming in the next few years, and I feel as though he's produced that, and he's proven that was the beginning of something special.
Alvaro, a great insight there from Jordan Henderson. What's the secret then for Unai Emery? Because everyone says, don't they, that he's a cup football manager. He brings his best football in all of the teams that he's managed, particularly Sevilla and Villarreal, in these cup competitions. What does he get right in these sort of format of games?
I think that he prepares the games individually very well. I think that Unai Emery is more suited for tournaments than for leagues, and I think that the biggest evidence of that is the fact that he won the Europa League with Sevilla 3 times in a row, but in those seasons he never qualified Sevilla for the Champions League via La Liga. I think that Unai Emery knows that this Villarreal secret is to make sure that the game is slow, because if Villarreal has to run against a team like Liverpool, then they will suffer. So normally what Unai Emery does is he slows it down from the very beginning. The goalkeeper takes his time to play the ball. The players like Parejo or Coquelin or Capoue are fundamental because they have to keep the ball, not to lose it, to play simply, to play slowly. In fact, Unai Emery apparently he's telling his players not to play one-touch football in defensive areas because they can lose the ball. So normally the secret of Villarreal is to slow it down. But then they've been tremendously efficient at the time of tackling and dealing with crosses. They did it against Bayern, they did it against Juve. But against Liverpool it's going to be tough because between Trent Alexander-Arnold and Robertson, they have given more than 20 assists combined between the Premier League and the Champions League. So those crosses are going to be for real. So there is a lot of work to do for Raúl Albiol and Pau Torres. But as I said at the beginning, Unai Emery has a plan, that's for sure. And let's see if he can slow down Liverpool because, as I said before again, this is the ultimate challenge. I mean, Liverpool is probably the fastest club in Europe, and Unai Emery will have to do a lot of work with his players. He has done it already to make sure that Liverpool is not as fast as normally, because then Villarreal will suffer.
Yeah, he is a man with a plan. He loves a clipboard, doesn't he, Alvaro? Harriet, I'll come to you. Just talk about Luis Diaz, because he's been such a revelation for Liverpool. He's got his opportunity in the first team, having signed from in January to much fanfare. Have you, as fans, been so impressed with the way that he's developed and settled in the Premier League so quickly?
I think we've been genuinely astounded. I think most of us expected him to come in and at least take a few months before he was a guaranteed name in the start sheet at least every other game. And now you're seeing him and you're planning the team and you're thinking he's got to come in because he's just been so impressive. And I don't think it can be underestimated the fact that he's not played in the Premier League before. He didn't speak the language. He didn't know, the setup, the system well. And he's come in and he looks like a Klopp-style player almost immediately. And that's a really impressive thing. And we saw him against Benfica. I went to Lisbon for the first leg and he just lit everything up. He was electric, and playing down that left side provides such a spark. And what I've also liked about him is the impact it's had on the other players, and especially Mane moving into the middle, and that's really seemed to work well. The two complement each other really well. So he's definitely been a bit of a revelation. And I think if we go on to win any more trophies this season, a lot of it can be credited to the fact that he came in January.
And Sam, it coincided well, doesn't it, when some of the attacking players who we've associated with scoring goals and assists for Liverpool in the past few seasons, Salah, Mane, have dipped off a little bit. Salah, in the last few weeks. Luis Diaz has stepped up his level and filled that gap.
Yeah, he's been an astonishingly good signing. Often you're talking about a South American player who's come through Europe too, and assimilated that way. It's quite common for them to take a bit of time. I mean, even Luis Suarez took a while to settle in at Liverpool, and not everything went in at first. But really, to be a first-team starter in this side, to really have probably jumped ahead of Jota as well as Firmino is a remarkable achievement. They took him from Spurs at the last minute, and it looks like another great Michael Edwards signing. Really, the last of his era as technical director.
Alvaro, Harriet, thanks so much for joining us here on Headline Makers. Enjoy the game later. We'll speak to you very, very soon. Let's turn our attention to Tuesday's game now. Manchester City were involved in one of the best Champions League semi-finals of all time as they beat Real Madrid 4-3 in the first leg. But Pep Guardiola thought City should have won by more.
To win this competition, for my small experience, is that you have to overcome situations like football give in front of you. So you cannot expect. Even the result could have been better. Madrid is always Bernabeu is Madrid. It doesn't matter with 1-0 up or 2 or 3 always. So you have to perform really well 2 games. We performed really well the first one. You have to do it the second one. It's a good test to show our personality as a team. And we are going to travel there to win the game. Yeah, we miss it, but we create it. So we were there all the time. Carlos said, yeah, that's true. So maybe I had to defend well, or maybe we can say we have to put the chance. But we were there. So it's not one complaint about the result, no complaint about the performance, anything. So.
Similar game, it's really difficult to have and to see this kind of open game as it was tonight. It will be a different game. Of course, Manchester City has the advantage. We have to consider this, not a big advantage, and we hope that our supporter can help us to play better than to try to go to the final.
Sam, as we mentioned, you were there. Do you think the Real Madrid fans who were inside the stadium when they were leaving afterwards felt they were probably a bit lucky to have only lost by 1 goal?
I think they sort of, what you saw there was the kind of cussedness of Madrid. They are clearly a team on the decline. They hope that they'll get Mbappe at the end of the season. They're ready for a refresh. They're certainly getting as much as they can out of the likes of Kroos and Modric. But they know that they've got this cup mentality. They seem to find a way. This is not a great Madrid side by any stretch of the imagination, but it is one that lives in moments, I feel. I think if Manchester City played them 10 times, I think City would win 7 of them. But just over 2 legs, that kind of ability, as you saw with the Modric assist against Chelsea, just to produce that moment is what has got them over the line.
2-0, 11 minutes, perfect start for City. How frustrated do you think deep down Guardiola will be that having put themselves in that perfect position, they weren't able to capitalise?
It was actually interesting to watch him on this night because he's an emotional man anyway on the touchline, and actually his greatest rage was saved for Mahrez when he went, I don't know if you remember this moment, he went down the right wing, so he's on his weaker foot, and he tries to score at the near post where Foden is in space and it just needs the cut back. There was that kind of, I mean, Guardiola goes through all the sort of anxieties during a game, but they felt more pronounced in the build-up to the first goal. When they missed their second tackle in midfield, he dropped to his knees. It was almost like he knew what was coming. He really lived that game in every moment, and I think he struggled with that just because, as a manager, he didn't feel his team ever quite had control.
Chelsea saw it in the last round. Why are Real Madrid so difficult to put away? Is it just something mental, the belief? Or is it something they do when they're a goal or 2 down? I
think it makes a big difference to the whole squad when you've got players like Modric and Benzema who have played in World Cup finals, who have won this trophy many, many times, and to them these are big games, but they're not the biggest games of their career. They've done it all before, and I think psychologically that has an effect, that has a confidence. There's clearly parts of this Madrid team when you look at the whole ensemble that are quite weak. I mean, you look at Ferland Mendy. He's not, he's not one of the top left backs in the world, but they are a side that manages to compensate for that. I mean, Vinicius is a really fine player. I mean, he has a huge effect in terms of pushing back an opposition defence, creates a lot of uncertainty. But I do feel that there is still that glow of an aura from the great Madrid teams that Ronaldo was a part of, which lives on in Modric and in Benzema.
Looking ahead for City and Liverpool, crazy to say, we've only got 25 days left of the season. This is what both sides have got to look forward to. Looking to the crystal ball, what's to come for both of them? Is the quadruple on the cards for Liverpool? And Manchester City, are they going to make it to the Champions League final? Will they win the Premier League title?
Well, I mean, I've always thought that this was Liverpool's title. I just feel like they've got that impetus. I mean, there's a great debate over who has the harder running, and looking at it, it's really, you're trying to look at teams that have a lot at stake, and you'll probably say that, well, looking at City, they've got fewer teams who've got lots to play for. Although I have to say the Leeds game is a huge game for Leeds. I think, remarkably, although it never happens, the quadruple, it is on. I mean, this is one of the great Liverpool teams of all time. They're relatively injury free at the moment. It's on. I mean, it's not impossible, and obviously the players and the manager aren't taking questions about it, and they dismiss it. But when you read the old accounts of Ferguson's team and winning the treble, they always believed it could be done. And once it gets closer, again, it's sort of what we discussed earlier, it's this one moment in history. You'll never be there again. It'll never happen again. So being able to seize it it's there for a lifetime. You write your name in history. It's not impossible. Someone will do it one day.
Yeah, the fans like Harriet on the Cop are certainly hoping that is true. Stay there, Sam. Lots more to come as we focus on a huge match on Thursday between Manchester United and Chelsea in the Premier League. Ralf Rangnick has been speaking today about a new era for the club under Erik ten Hag. He also discussed where he thinks United could finish this season. We'll hear from him next.
As heavyweight Premier League clashes go, this one's right up there. United may be down, but with this man around,
Ronaldo!
can never count them out.
Stretford end salvation.
Will the Red Devils come out fighting against Tuchel's Blues? Or can the boys from the Bridge land a decisive blow in their quest to rejoin Europe's elite? This is Manchester United versus Chelsea.
Welcome back to Headline Makers. Manchester United go into that match against Chelsea on Thursday, having won just 2 of their last 8 league games, leaving them 6 points off 4th spot. Speaking in the last few hours, interim manager Ralf Rangnick knows Champions League qualification is now an unrealistic target.
Taken back by Elneny, hit by Xhaka, what a goal! What a wonderful, wonderful goal!
Yeah, we have 4 more games to play. The next 2 games are at home at Old Trafford, and obviously we will try to get as many points and win as many games as we possibly can out of those last 4 games. In order to do that, we need to play on the best level that we possibly can, and we know that Chelsea is a good team, but we also know that if we play well, that it's also possible to win the game tomorrow. I don't think it makes sense now to still speak and speculate about the Champions League. We need to be realistic. Even if we win all 4 games, it's still not in our own hands. But what is in our own hands is the way that we play, the level of our performance. And even for the next season, I think it's important to finish this season on the best possible note. Obviously, if results are not going well, and we lost 3 of the last 4 games, this always means that the morale or the energy in the locker room is not as good as it would be if we had won those 4 games. But still, we have to perform. This is what we are getting paid for. This is also important for the players. They also, now knowing who the new manager will be, they have to perform and to show in front of, again, 75,000 tomorrow that we are able to beat a team like Chelsea. And this is our job. This is what everybody has to do, and this is what we're working at for the whole week in preparation of the game. Of course, it would be better if we played Champions League next season, but this also affects other clubs. This is not a problem that only Manchester United has, but I mean, the renewal of the contract of Bruno showed that it's still possible. This club is an attractive club, and with a new manager and with a new approach with the new manager and the way that he wants to play, this is still a massively interesting club, and I'm looking forward to help both Eric and the club and everybody at the club to get the best and to change the whole approach again next season, so that Manchester United can be a top club again.
Well, let's get straight over to Old Trafford for more on Manchester United, joined Damien Johnson, who's there for us. Damien, after these recent bad results and bad performances, how frustrated are the fans there?
I think most Manchester United fans can't wait to see the back of the season, quite frankly. The run they're on at the moment is appalling, isn't it? 2 wins in 8, 1 win in 6, and that 1 win was only against the bottom club Norwich City, a team that in years gone by they'd be expected to put to the sword quite comfortably, but they actually struggled on the day here at Old Trafford. I think many fans just looking forward to next season, a new chapter, turning the page and welcoming Erik ten Hag to see whether he can work his magic and turn Manchester United back into a Champions League chasing and championship chasing club.
A lot of question marks over Paul Pogba's future. We've said that before. Has he played his last game in a United shirt, do you think?
It very much looks that way. He's out with an injury, unspecified as to how long he will be out. It's been an open secret really for several months that he plans to move on in the summer as a free transfer. The obvious destination, I guess, would be Paris Saint-Germain. Moneybags bankrolled by Kuwaiti Oil, a last big contract for him. He's been a frustrating figure in a Manchester United shirt pretty much over the time he's been here. We've seen little glimpses of what he's capable of, but nothing like the way he performs for the French national team, where he plays in that slightly more advanced role with the insurance policy of N'Golo Kante behind him, just keeping the back door shut. So, I don't think too many Manchester United fans will mourn his departure in the summer if it does come to pass. The second time, of course, he's left Manchester United, and I think it's probably now a bit of an inevitability.
Sam, you've watched Paul Pogba obviously loads of it over the last few seasons when he's been at Manchester United. Frustrating that some of those brilliant performances just can't be repeated on a regular basis. Why do you think that's happened?
Yeah, I think if we go back to the start when he was signed, he was signed as this transformative marquee player. So this signing was to be as big as Brian Robson's arrival, as Wayne Rooney, as Van Nistelrooy, of all these huge players that have transformed United. And I don't ever think he was that player. I think we probably had a notion of him in the English game as a possibly just based on what we remembered in that FA Youth Cup winning team and the clips from and what people had seen from Juventus as this sort of midfield general. I don't think he's ever really. He may look that way, but I think he's a much more sort of creative player. Really, I mean, some of the worst performances have come when he's been asked to play as that defensive midfielder. He's just not a natural kind of presser of the ball and a kind of someone who spots problems early, as Damien mentioned, Kante does. So I think there is an element of him being played out of position, and I think United made the wrong signing. I really do. I mean, he was a huge name, and he's an incredibly marketable brand. But I think they picked the wrong player. And yes, he played well in that French team that won the World Cup. But that French team that won the World Cup was quite a tough watch. They had loads of talent, great players in every position. But Deschamps got that team to the final and won it, playing pretty conservative football. And yes, Pogba thrived in that. But I'm afraid that for the money, United just haven't seen the transformation that they expected.
Damien, no such problems at all for Cristiano Ronaldo. He's been in great form recently and throughout the whole season, really. 4 goals in his last 2 games in the Premier League. Is there the inclination, perhaps from the new manager that's coming in, Erik ten Hag, that next season the team will be completely built around Ronaldo?
It's a big conundrum, isn't it, for Erik ten Hag, because Ronaldo certainly scored the goals this season that fired Manchester United into the knockout stages of the Champions League, rather unexpectedly, it has to be said. He got his 100th Premier League goal at Arsenal at the weekend, evergreen at the age of 37. But will he fit into the Erik ten Hag picture of how things are going forward for Manchester United? It's interesting, actually, that Ajax have an older player in their ranks than Cristiano Ronaldo. Goalkeeper Martin Stekelenburg, who we know from his past in the Premier League, is still going strong at the age of 39, knocking 40 in actual fact. So maybe he'll get a free pass, Ronaldo, under Erik ten Hag. It's one of the big questions and one of the big issues in the in-tray, if you like, for Erik ten Hag when he arrives in the summer.
Sam, I loved reading your piece on Erik ten Hag. You went to his hometown. Was what you found and what people said about him what you expected? And can you give us any insight into, I suppose, the man away from the touchline? Yeah, well, everyone was very nice about him, as you would expect. He is definitely the most famous person ever to walk out of Harksbergen. Just for a bit of context, it's in the sort of very far east Netherlands, so you're almost on the German border. It's near the the city of Enschede, which is where FC Twente play, which was Steve McLaren's side that won the league. He was a pretty ordinary player. He played for Twente in three different periods of his career, but clearly a very, very detailed coach, a real obsessive about football, who worked his way up from the academy with no big sort of playing reputation upon which to rely. I think what was most interesting, what I discovered, was actually what Steve McLaren told me about him. And Steve was, absolutely kind of fulsome in his praise. He said when his first day there, he met him and he'd already planned the whole pre-season. And really, although Ten Hag was only there for 1 year with McLaren, and then in McLaren's second year he won the league with Twente, he pretty much said, look, I mean, a lot of it was what Erik did with the previous manager, Fred Rutten, that laid the foundations. So I think what we're seeing is a man who's clearly a really modern coach. He's 52, he's absorbed, he's sort of taken in all the kind of the theory as well as the practice of modern management. He's been a sporting director as well at Utrecht. But this is the Premier League, and most of all it's Manchester United, where it's swallowed up a lot of famous names. I think it's a really, really difficult one to call. There's not a massive range of managers who would be obvious for the job. He's the right man at the right time, and he's got a great opportunity. Yeah, it'll be so interesting to see how he gets on in the short term. Damien, just ahead of this big game against Chelsea on Thursday, have got quite a few injury problems, haven't they, Manchester United? What's the latest on the squad?
Well, Harry Maguire's the latest one. He's got a knee problem. There is a suggestion he could be out for the rst of the season. Only a handful of games to go, of course. Jadon Sancho, who we were going to feature in tonight's programme, actually. I spoke to him yesterday. He was in very good form, actually. He's got tonsillitis, so he won't play. And this to add to a long list of players. Fred is out with a hip problem. It's not really healing. It's been a problem he's had for a few weeks, and you add this to a list of longer term casualties, if you like, the likes of Pogba, Cavani, who are all going to be missing. So there's a faint prospect that some of the youngsters will get blooded against Chelsea. It's certainly a tough ask for some of them, but a great experience if they do get the chance. It's a bit of a headache really for Ralf Rangnick as he looks to see out the rest of the season.
Yeah, tough times there at Old Trafford. They need a performance in that game against Chelsea. Thanks very much for joining us. Damien, once again, Liv is back at the touchscreen with more on that big game, focusing on Chelsea.
Yeah, absolutely, Adam. They are looking to cement third place in the Premier League table, aren't they? And this man has come into his own the last few months. Kai Havertz, he's Chelsea's big game player in general. Of course, he scored the Champions League winning goal against Manchester City in Porto. And of course, he scored the winning penalty, didn't he, in the Club World Cup win out in Abu Dhabi. One of Chelsea's 2 trophies this season, of course, to add to the Super Cup as well. And we can actually see Kai Havertz's Premier League stats this season. Now, it's 24 appearances, 7 goals and 2 assists. But actually, when you go back to the beginning of March, in all competitions, he's got 7 goal involvements in 12 games, and his overall game has improved. He is Chelsea's main man, but his Chelsea career didn't actually start that way. And I caught up with Kai Havertz earlier this week and asked him if he ever doubted himself.
Sometimes you doubt yourself, but I think on the next day then it's okay, and then you think, okay, maybe I'm not so bad as I think, and then you can train again on the training pitch, and you get your strength back on the pitch.
He's had a brilliant run of games, Kai Havertz, and we can actually see Chelsea's last 7 results in all competitions. It has been a little bit up and down, despite winning, of course, against West Ham most recently. It feels like that game at Real Madrid at the Bernabeu took a lot out of Thomas Tuchel's squad. It was a monumental effort at the Bernabeu, wasn't it? It wasn't quite enough, but performances recently haven't quite been as good as that. But they have actually still won 2 of their 3 games they've played since, of course, that FA Cup semi-final against Crystal Palace, and, of course, most recently against West Ham. And that win against the Hammers has all but cemented third place for Chelsea in the Premier League table. They are 5 points ahead of Arsenal in 4th, but more crucially, they are 7 ahead of Spurs in 5th. And of course, they have a game in hand, and that game is, of course, against Manchester United tomorrow night. And Kai Havertz has been speaking about facing Ralf Rangnick's side.
Well, I don't know. I think everyone expects us to go there and win easily because they have not the best moment, but I think it's one of the toughest places you can go in the league, and they have still one of the best squads in the league as well. So if they want, I think they can play also very good. So it's going to be a tough match for us, but I think we are well prepared and we go there with a lot of confidence.
That was Kai Havertz speaking there. Now our reporter Lindsay Hooper is live at Stamford Bridge for us. Lindsay, Thomas Tuchel has been speaking today, hasn't he, in his pre-match press conference? What's he had to say?
Yeah, he has, and he was giving some indications of players that might be returning just in time for this Manchester United game, or certainly by Everton at the weekend, Olivia. Antonio Rudiger is one of the names. He's been back in training. Also Reece James, who I think when he hasn't been playing for Chelsea, they really have missed him not being in the side, not only defensively, but of course the goals that he's had this season and the chances he's created. But coming back to Antonio Rudiger, because we do know that he won't be at Chelsea after the summer, and that news has been digested by the squad. Thomas Tuchel was giving us an indication of how much he will be missed, and certainly what the rest of the squad have been reacting to it and what that's been like.
I don't think that anybody likes it, because Tony is a huge factor in our last 1.5 seasons together. He gives everybody confidence in the dressing room. He's a unique character. He's an aggressive leader, and he plays on an outstanding level, and he gives you confidence if you play next to him, if you play around him. We have to accept it, and we will accept it. Like it or not, there will be life at Chelsea after Tony. And now is also for him and for us is the most important thing, that it ends like it started and like it was for the 1.5 years on the highest level possible. Chelsea and Man U is, for me as a football fan and for me as a big fan from Premier League, it's a big match. I would always watch it. We arrived to win. We arrived to play for the victory, and this is a great feeling. I am not concerned about Man United because first of all it's not my job, and second of all they will always recover because the club is a huge club, and the squad is full of individual talent.
So Lindsay, Rudiger of course confirmed that he's leaving the club in the summer when he's out of contract, but there's a couple of other defenders, a couple of key defenders that are also out of contract in the summer and their future's yet to be decided.
Yes, there's going to be a big task when it comes to sorting out this Chelsea defence over the summer. Anyone thinking this has been a long, arduous season for the club with other things going on off the pitch as well, it's going to continue into the summer because there is a rebuilding project potentially. You look at defence, Olivia, and in there you've got Andreas Christensen, very heavy links for him to go to Barcelona. You'd expect that he will be leaving the club. On a more positive note though, captain Cesar Azpilicueta, it is believed that he's nearing an extension, but his contract is up in the summer. He may still go on to leave the club. I know that Thomas Tuchel as well has been keeping an eye on some of the players out on loan. One of those is Dusan Sterling, who's at Blackpool. He's a young player coming through, a young defender who absolutely is part of Thomas Tuchel's plans to join training over the summer period. But I think the biggest positive as well to take is the way that Thomas Tuchel was talking in this press conference, the way that you read into how he was looking at the future. You'd think that he was absolutely saying he will be part of the plan. So the manager, I think, first and foremost, will be staying put.
And that is absolutely huge news for everyone at Chelsea Football Club. Thomas Tuchel handling the situation over the last couple of months incredibly well. A win over Manchester United, Lindsay, will almost cement third place in the Premier League table. But actually, Chelsea go to Old Trafford with a pretty bad recent record against them at that stadium, but also in the Premier League in general, don't they?
They do. They've not beaten Manchester United in the Premier League, first of all, since 2017. And at Old Trafford, you have to go back another 4 years to 2013. So this is a club that they really struggle when they come up against them. Of course, Manchester United aren't in the best form right now. I think that Thomas Tuchel will be wanting to address that and certainly put in a good performance, because there is that cherry dangling that if they can get a win at Old Trafford, you'd absolutely think that Chelsea then have secured third place. They'd be 10 points adrift of Spurs, who are currently in fifth. And that is the gap that Thomas Tuchel wants, to then have that ease and that comfortable feeling going into the FA Cup final, which is on the 14th of May against Liverpool. I think he's hanging a lot on trying to get that trophy and bringing it back to Stamford Bridge.
Yeah, absolutely. And one player who, of course, won't feature against Manchester United due to injury is Mateo Kovacic. Hopefully, Thomas Tuchel will have him back fit for the FA Cup final. How big of a miss will he be for this game? Because, Lindsay, he's had an incredible season. I know he's been injured for a little bit of it, but he's been one of Chelsea's best, hasn't he?
He has. I know that we share a view on this, Olivia, actually. I think that Kovacic has been the best midfielder for Chelsea this season, without doubt. I think over the years we've got used to N'Golo Conte and really waxing lyrical about his skills and what he offers, but he has been quite injury prone. And I think the days of Conte alongside Jorginho are probably over at this football club. It's all about Kovacic and what he brings, his work rate, his engine, the way that he sees passes as well. Now, this ankle injury has ruled him out for a couple of weeks. We are told he hasn't been in training. He certainly is ruled out for the game against Manchester United and most likely as well against Everton. But as you've hinted at, I'm sure for Thomas Tuchel it will all be about getting Kovacic back in the side for the FA Cup final on the 14th of May.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you very much, Lindsay. That was our reporter, Lindsay Hooper, at Stamford Bridge for us ahead of Manchester United against Chelsea. And Adam, like Lindsay just said there, I'm sure Thomas Tuchel hoping to get a victory at Old Trafford for the first time in a very long time. And that way he can then put all of his focus onto winning the FA Cup.
Yeah, good stuff. Thanks very much, Liv. Just one quickly, Sam, on Chelsea. We mentioned Antonio Rudiger there. How difficult do you think Tuchel and Chelsea will find it to replace him? Because love him or hate him, he is a big character, isn't he?
Yeah, he's unusual in that he has got that sort of, that you can really see his personality on the pitch that marks him out. He's a great defender and he's got better and better. He certainly has improved since his time in the Premier League. Of course, a lot depends on who the new owners are going to be at Chelsea and what sort of budget they're prepared to give. But again, I mean, Dusan Sterling's a good shout. I mean, he's not ready to go straight into that side. But then Trevor Chalobah's got another year behind him. I do think though that they'll have to replace that experience, and Chelsea really are in a bit of a holding pattern at the moment until they know who's going to own them.
Because that's the thing, as we're seeing here in these pictures, it's the tough tackling from Rudiger that he brings to every single match he plays in. He's almost feared by opponents because of this, isn't he? He does score the odd good goal as well.
Yeah, he has a lot of shots, that's for sure. He has a lot of belief in that shot and perseveres with it. I think he's obviously been a key figure over the years. I mean, it's no secret that him and Lampard didn't get on. So he's always been a strong personality in the dressing room, and he's been quite single-minded in pursuing this free agency. This is going to be arguably his last big contract, and he's gone after it. It looks like it's Real Madrid that he's going to go to. A lot of players struggle going into free agency because there's a lot of pressure on them from the fans, from the club to sign a new contract. He's the type of personality that doesn't seem to mind that. And those strong individuals are surprisingly rare.
OK, thanks very much, Sam. Lots more to come on Headline Makers after a short break. They're one of the most important pieces of kit to protect footballers, but shin pads can also inspire Premier League players to greatness. They can tell some stories as well. We'll talk about them next. Welcome back to Headline Makers. For today's Beyond the Headline section, we're going to focus on an item that all footballers have, but they barely ever mention: shin pads. Our reporter Rob Scanlon has been finding out how they not only protect our players, but can also be a source of inspiration.
Whether it's your boots or your kit, the tools of the trade for any footballer need to be comfortable and resilient. But can another essential item that's always tucked away make a player more at ease or even inspired on the pitch?
They are one of the first things that you'll buy when you start playing football, but shin pads aren't just there to protect you from rash challenges, they can tell some stories as well.
This is the man who invented them. In 1874, Nottingham Forest player Sam Weller-Widdowson cut down a pair of his cricket pads and strapped them to his football socks. The modern day ones are made a little differently now and can be personalised. Several Premier League stars, past and present, have done just that.
So I've had two pairs from them. The first one was the Celtic badge and the Arsenal badge. I think that's special to me. It's the two clubs that I've played for, the two clubs that mean a lot to me. And the other pair was a picture of my dog, and he died just before the Euros. So I said, is there any chance of getting these shin pads done right before the Euros? Just as like a little sentimental thing. And they did, and it was a special time because I think the first game I wore them was the England game, and we managed to get the draw. So yeah, it was nice.
When Tottenham's Toby Alderweireld stepped out for his 200th and final Premier League appearance against Leicester here back in May, he was wearing his personalised shin pads. And before he left Spurs in the summer, he told me why they've meant so much to him.
It's a little bit like history. How many times in my career my old family was there for me, even now. And then of course my wife and my kids now, they are both my reason why I do my best every day, why my motivation, why I do everything, and they make me able to do everything, because it's not easy. We travel, my wife is always alone with the kids, I don't see my family, of course with Corona even worse now. I don't see my family, my brothers, my mother, my dad. So yeah, I think they suffer a lot because I'm doing the things that I can do. So yeah, I have to be very thankful for them, and that's why it's not a gesture, but it's just something that I can do, and it's something personal, and why not?
Every player has their own individual routine before they walk down the tunnel and take to the pitch for the first time. And shin pads can play a big role in making someone feel nice and happy and settled if they're away from family at an away match.
I've got a picture of my wife and my son on there, and on one of my shin pads, and on the other one I've got my daughter. So yeah, just for me it's like a special touch because it's something that I take with me to all the games. I don't change them. I change my boots quite often, but yeah, shin pads are always the same. So they've always become like a part of my game day ritual. So I always put them on the same way, and yeah, it's always nice to have like a little moment before I go out on the pitch and reminds me who I'm actually doing this for.
The man tasked with doing justice to these very personal pieces is graphic designer Andy Bell. I met up with him recently in Northern Ireland.
I've been in the trade now for just over
20 years. The game changer probably was ultimately Kieran Tierney. After the Chelsea game around Christmas time, he pulled his socks down and our pads were noticed all around the globe. So the pads have to be at a very high standard, and you have a due level of care for the players as well, because ultimately, football is a compact sport. It's okay having something that looks quite well, but if it doesn't serve the purpose that it's there for, then it's no good. Those pads were designed in my kitchen on a Wednesday night as my newborn baby, needed fed. So for me, that's the joy of it. That's the whole romance of the story.
Who knew such stories were tucked away inside discreet boxes or a pair of socks? Shin pads, a century and a half of protection and player personality. So, what would you have on yours?
That was interesting, wasn't it, Sam? As you know, footballers, they're a superstitious bunch. Everything's got to be just right, hasn't it?
Well, one thing I'm amazed at is how small they are, these shin pads. They don't offer much protection.
They almost look pointless.
Yeah, compared to the ones I remember wearing at school. But the other thing is they seem to be the only part of the footballer's attire that isn't branded. So I think perhaps the clubs will be watching this and thinking, a commercial department is missing a trick here.
Yeah, potentially in the next season or so. Let's have a quick reminder of where we are in the middle of a really busy week of football. Liverpool against Villarreal later, then on Thursday, one Premier League game, United against Chelsea and West Ham against Leicester in their respective European competitions. Very quickly, because we've only got 30 seconds left, Sam, but West Ham and Leicester, big nights for them tomorrow.
Yeah, Leicester because they need it to qualify for the Europa League for next year, and West Ham because it's just such a brilliant story, and it's wide open for them. They really could do it, and the Moyes revolution has taken them this far. A great opportunity.
Yeah, big games for both of those two teams. We'll be watching that later, but all eyes later on Liverpool's quest to continue their battle for the quadruple. Can they do it? They face Villarreal, who've been the giant killers so far in the Champions League in that first leg at Anfield. It'll be a great atmosphere. Thanks very much, Sam. Enjoy the game. We'll see you soon here on Headline Makers.